The quiet extinction, the Hegemony Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of crystalline architecture, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that reflected the mood of its occupants. Today, those patterns flickered with dark reds and purples, the colors of decision and finality. High Chancellor Vex High raised her forearms, calling the assembly to order. Her species, the Kethmori, had ruled the galactic community for over 2 millennia, and she carried that authority. In every gesture, "We gather to address the human problem," she announced, her voice carrying through the chamber's acoustic amplifiers. Their expansion continues unchecked. Their violence spreads like a plague across peaceful worlds. Across the vast chamber, representatives from 47 species murmured their agreement. The evidence was clear. In just 500 years since achieving faster-than-light travel, humans had colonized 63 star systems, established trade routes that disrupted ancient economic structures, and worst of all, they had begun forming alliances with species that had remained neutral for millennia. Commander Zolkan of the Phraxian military floated forward, his crystalline form catching the chamber's light. The humans have rejected all diplomatic solutions. They refuse to limit their expansion. They ignore our territorial boundaries. They even dare to question our authority over this galaxy. The chamber erupted in chittering, growling, and harmonic protests. The very idea that a species barely 500,000 years old would challenge the hegemony seemed absurd. Yet here they were, discussing exactly that problem. "Their military capabilities have grown exponentially," continued Zolkon. "Our intelligence suggests they are developing weapons that could threaten even our most advanced civilizations. We cannot allow this to continue." High Chancellor Vexed High's tendrils writhed with concentration. The Kethmori had faced rebellious species before, but never one that adapted so quickly, never one that seemed to thrive on conflict itself. "What do you propose, Commander?" Direct military action would be costly and could unite other species. Against us, however, our scientists have developed a more elegant solution. Zolkan gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the chamber's center. Atmospheric nanobots. They can be deployed across Earth's atmosphere, slowly reducing oxygen levels while introducing compounds toxic to human biology. The process will take months, appearing as natural atmospheric changes. By the time they understand what's happening, it will be too late. The chamber fell silent. Even among the hegemony's ruthless leadership, the complete extinction of a species was not discussed lightly. Finally, Councillor Tissera of the Hellion Collective spoke up. "This is genocide. The galactic community has laws against such actions." "Laws that apply to civilized species," Vex High replied coldly. "Humans have proven themselves to be nothing more than sophisticated barbarians. They wage war on each other, destroy their own environment, and now they threaten the peace we have maintained. For 3,000 years. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. The hegemony had not ruled the galaxy for millennia by showing mercy to threats. The vote was unanimous among the major powers, with only a few minor species abstaining. 3 days later, invisible nanobots began their silent work in Earth's atmosphere. Dr. Sarah Chen first noticed the anomaly in her atmospheric monitoring station in Beijing. The readings made no sense. Oxygen levels were dropping, but not uniformly. The decrees followed patterns that seemed almost designed, too precise to be natural. She ran the data through her quantum processors 3 times, each result confirming her growing suspicion. "This can't be right," she whispered, staring at the holographic display showing atmospheric composition across the globe. The changes were subtle but consistent, appearing simultaneously on every continent. Natural climate change didn't work that way. She called her colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb, at the European Space Agency. Marcus, I need you to check your atmospheric data from the past week. Look for oxygen depletion patterns. Sarah, what's wrong? You sound panicked. Just check the data. Please. 20 minutes later, Marcus called back. His voice was tight with fear. Sarah, according to our satellites, the entire planet's atmosphere is being systematically altered. The changes are too uniform, too calculated. Someone is doing this to us. Within hours, atmospheric scientists across the globe were sharing their data. The picture that emerged was terrifying. Earth's atmosphere was being slowly poisoned by something that shouldn't exist. Something that operated at the molecular level with precision that exceeded human technology. The first deaths began 2 weeks later. People in major cities started collapsing, their lungs unable to process the changing air. Hospitals overflowed with patients suffering from respiratory failure. Governments initially blamed pollution, then terrorism, then natural disasters. None of them suspected the truth. Dr. Chen worked frantically in her laboratory, trying to understand the mechanism of the atmospheric changes. Her team had isolated the nanobots, microscopic machines that were breaking down oxygen molecules and replacing them with compounds that human lungs couldn't process. The technology was centuries beyond anything humans had developed. We're being exterminated, she told her research team during their emergency meeting. Someone or something is systematically making our planet uninhabitable. Her assistant, Dr. James Liu, studied the data with growing horror. The progression rate suggests we have maybe 6 months before the atmosphere becomes completely toxic to human life. After that, anyone not in a sealed environment will die. Panic spread across the planet as governments finally acknowledged the crisis. Mass evacuations to underground bunkers began in major cities. The wealthy fled to sealed biodomes, while the poor faced the changing air with nothing but makeshift masks. Society began to collapse as the reality of extinction settled over humanity. In the underground bunkers, something strange began to happen. Children who had been exposed to the changing atmosphere started showing unusual symptoms. Instead of dying, they began to adapt. Their lung capacity increased. Their metabolism changed. Some developed higher body temperatures, while others showed enhanced physical strength. 10-year-old Emma Rodriguez was among the first to demonstrate the new abilities. While playing with other children in the Denver bunker, she sneezed and produced a small flame. The adults initially thought it was a trick, but medical examinations revealed that Emma's respiratory system had fundamentally changed. She could now process the toxic compounds in the atmosphere and convert them into energy. Dr. Chen received reports of similar cases from bunkers worldwide. Children were adapting to the poison, their bodies somehow learning to thrive in the new atmospheric conditions. But the changes weren't limited to children. Adults who had been exposed to high concentrations of the toxic compounds were also beginning to show signs of adaptation. It's like the human body is treating this as an evolutionary pressure. Dr. Chen explained to the emergency council meeting held in the Washington, D.C. bunker. Our species is adapting to survive, but the changes are happening at an unprecedented rate. President Maria Santos studied the medical reports with amazement and fear. What are you telling me, doctor? That we're evolving? I'm telling you that extinction might not be inevitable. But we're not going to be the same species that emerges from this crisis. As months passed, the number of adapted humans grew. They called themselves the Awakened, and their abilities continued to expand. Fire breathing became common, but so did enhanced strength, improved reflexes, and most remarkably, the ability to survive in the vacuum of space for short periods. Commander Jake Morrison, a former astronaut who had adapted early, found himself leading groups of awakened humans in raids on abandoned military facilities. They needed weapons, they needed technology, and they needed answers about who had done this to their planet. During one such raid at a classified research facility in Nevada, Morrison's team discovered something that changed everything. Hidden in the facility's quantum computers was evidence of alien contact, dating back decades. The files revealed that Earth had been under observation by a galactic community, and recent communications suggested that humanity had been deemed too dangerous to exist. They tried to kill us all, Morrison told his team as they studied the alien communications. Every man, woman, and child on Earth. They decided we were too violent, too unpredictable, so they sentenced our entire species to death. The revelation spread through the survivor communities like wildfire. The atmospheric poisoning hadn't been a natural disaster or even a terrorist attack. It had been a deliberate act of genocide by aliens who saw humanity as a threat to their galactic order. But their plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of dying quietly, humanity had adapted. The poison meant to kill them had instead triggered evolutionary changes that made them stronger, more capable, and infinitely more dangerous than before. As the first year of the crisis ended, adapted, humans began emerging from their shelters. They found a world transformed, with new ecosystems developing around the altered atmosphere. Plants and animals were also adapting, creating a planet that was no longer quite Earth as it had been, but something new and remarkable. Dr. Chen stood on the surface outside her laboratory, breathing the toxic air that would have killed her just months earlier. Her skin had taken on a slight metallic sheen, and her eyes now glowed with an inner fire. Around her, other awakened humans worked to rebuild their civilization. But they were building something different, something that could survive in a galaxy that had tried to destroy them. They wanted to make us extinct, she said to Commander Morrison as he joined her on the surface. Instead, they made us into something they should truly fear. The transformation was complete. Humanity had died and been reborn in fire and poison. Now, they had to decide what to do with their new existence. The fire awakened 6 months after the last unmodified human had died or adapted. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the newly constructed Phoenix station, orbiting Earth at the edge of the atmosphere. The station had been built by awakened humans in just 3 weeks, their enhanced abilities allowing them to work in the vacuum of space without protection suits. The Earth below looked different now. The atmosphere glowed with a faint crimson light, and the continents were crisscrossed with the geometric patterns of new cities built by the awakened. Humanity had not just survived the attempted genocide, they had thrived. Commander, we have successfully reverse-engineered the alien nanobots, reported Dr. Sarah Chen, her voice now carrying a slight harmonic quality that all awakened humans had developed. We understand their technology now. More importantly, we've learned how to track their origin point. Morrison nodded, his enhanced metabolism allowing him to process information at speeds that would have been impossible for unmodified humans. Show me. The holographic display in the center of the command room flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional map of local space. Red lines traced the path of the nanobots back through space, converging on a star system 43 light away. The Kethmori system, Dr. Chen continued. According to the data we've recovered, they're the leaders of something called the Hegemony Council. They made the decision to exterminate us. Morrison's eyes blazed with an inner fire that had become the hallmark of the awakened. Then it's time we paid them a visit. The past months had been a period of incredible advancement for humanity, working with technology salvaged from the alien nanobots and driven by the enhanced cognitive abilities of the awakened. Human scientists had developed faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and spacecraft that could be constructed in days, rather than years. The first human starship, christened the Retribution, had been completed just days earlier. It was a magnificent vessel, 3 kilometers long and powered by a fusion reactor that burned hotter than the core of the sun. More importantly, it was crewed entirely by awakened humans who could survive the journey through space and the battles that lay ahead. "All stations report ready," announced Captain Lisa Park, who had been among the first wave of adapted humans. Her specialty was the ability to interface directly with the ship's computer systems, her enhanced nervous system allowing her to control the vessel as if it were an extension of her own body. "Take us out," Morrison commanded. The Retribution accelerated away from Earth at a speed that would have been impossible for pre-adaptation humans to survive. The awakened crew barely noticed the forces that would have crushed their ancestors. They were built for this now, engineered by alien poison into something that could thrive in the hostile environment of space. The journey to the Kethmori system took 3 weeks. During that time, the crew prepared for what they knew would be humanity's introduction to the galactic community. They had no intention of asking for permission to exist. Approaching the outer planets, Captain Park reported, "I'm detecting multiple space stations and what appear to be defensive platforms." Morrison studied the tactical display. The Kethmori had clearly not expected visitors. Their defenses were designed to handle conventional threats, not a species that had been forged in the fires of attempted extinction. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing a being that was clearly alien yet somehow familiar. High Chancellor Vex-High had 4 arms, crystalline skin, and eyes that held the weight of millennia. Behind her, Morrison could see other aliens, all of them staring at the human ship with expressions of shock and fear. "This is impossible," Vex-High said, her voice carrying through the translation system. "Your species was eliminated months ago. Our sensors confirmed the success of the atmospheric modification project." Morrison smiled, an expression that was both human and something more. "Your sensors were wrong. We're very much alive, and we have some questions for you." The alien leader's tendrils writhed with what Morrison recognized as distress. "What up? You cannot be human." Humans were weak, primitive creatures that couldn't survive basic atmospheric changes. "We were human," Morrison replied. "Your poison changed us into something else, something better. Something that can survive in the vacuum of space, breathe fire, and apparently build starships that your senses can't fully comprehend." To demonstrate his point, Morrison gestured to his crew. Captain Park exhaled a controlled stream of flame. That briefly illuminated the bridge. The engineering team's skin glowed with internal heat as they worked their controls. The entire crew moved with a fluid grace that spoke of enhanced reflexes and strength. "What do you want?" Vex-High asked, her voice now trembling with fear. We want to understand why you tried to commit genocide against our species. We want to know who else was involved, and we want to make sure it never happens again." The High Chancellor's form seemed to shrink as the reality of the situation became clear. The Hegemony Council voted. Your species was deemed too dangerous to coexist with civilized beings. The decision was unanimous among the major powers. Morrison's eyes blazed brighter. 47 species voted to exterminate humanity. They were following proper galactic law, Vexi protested. Your species was expanding too rapidly, refusing to acknowledge our authority. You were a threat to 3,000 years of peace. And now, Morrison asked quietly, asterisk. The alien leader looked at the human ship on her screens, at the crew that should have been dead, at the technology that shouldn't exist. Now you are a threat to existence itself. Morrison nodded slowly. Good. We understand each other. The communication channel closed, leaving the human crew to contemplate what they had learned. 47 species had voted to destroy humanity. The entire galactic community had agreed that humans were too dangerous to exist. They had tried to solve the human problem with poison and genocide. "Commander," reported Lieutenant Sophia, "Reyes, the ship's tactical officer, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. They're mobilizing their defense fleets." Morrison studied the tactical display as dozens of alien warships began converging on their position. The vessels were larger than the Retribution, clearly designed for warfare on a scale that pre-adaptation humanity could never have imagined. Their ships are powered by fusion reactors, similar to ours, Dr. Chen reported from her science station. But their weapons appear to be based on particle beam technology, effective against most materials, but ... But not against us, Morrison finished. The Awakened had discovered that their enhanced physiology was remarkably resistant to energy. Weapons, their altered metabolism could absorb and redirect many forms of radiation that would be lethal to other species. "All hands, prepare for combat," Morrison announced. "Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you try to exterminate humanity." The first alien ship opened fire with a massive particle beam that would have vaporized any conventional vessel. The energy struck the Retribution's hull and was absorbed, the ship's biometallic armor actually becoming stronger as it fed on the incoming energy. "Return fire," Morrison commanded. The Retribution's weapons were based on the same technology that had created the Awakened themselves. Instead of trying to destroy the alien ships, the human weapons began converting the enemy vessels' atmospheres into toxic compounds. Within minutes, the alien crews were suffocating in their own ships as their air became poison. "They're abandoning their vessels," reported Captain Park. "Multiple escape pods launching." Morrison watched as the alien fleet, the pride of the Kethmori military, was systematically neutralized without a single ship being destroyed. The aliens had tried to kill humanity with poison, and now they were experiencing the same fate. "This is Commander Morrison to all Kethmori vessels," he broadcast. "You attempted to exterminate my species. You failed. Now you will experience what you tried to do to us." The response was immediate. Ships began surrendering across the system, their crews begging for mercy from the species they had tried to destroy. Morrison felt no satisfaction in their fear, only a cold certainty that justice was being served. Commander Dr. Chen called out, "We're receiving communications from other star systems. Word is spreading about what's happening here." Morrison looked at the display showing incoming messages from across the galaxy. Fear, panic, and desperate attempts at communication were flooding in from the 47 species that had voted. for humanity's extinction. Let them be afraid, he said quietly. They tried to make us extinct. Instead, they made us into their judgment. The Battle of Kethmori lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, the entire system was under human control. Its population alive, but forever changed by the experience of being on the receiving end of their own genocidal weapon. Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking out at the conquered alien world below. The Awakened had won their first victory, but he knew it was only the beginning. 46 other species had voted for humanity's extinction. Each one would be visited. Each one would face the consequences of their choice. Set course for the Vraxian system, he ordered. We have more questions to ask. As the Retribution prepared to leave the Kethmori system, Morrison reflected on what humanity had become. They had been targeted for extinction because they were seen as too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. The alien poison had been meant to eliminate those qualities by eliminating the species that possessed them. Instead, it had created something far more dangerous than the aliens had ever imagined. The Awakened retained all of humanity's adaptability, creativity, and determination, but now they possessed the power to back up their convictions on a galactic scale. The galaxy had tried to judge humanity and found them wanting. Now, humanity would judge the galaxy in return, and unlike their would-be executioners, the Awakened would make sure their judgment was both swift and final. The fire had awakened, and the stars would burn.